once the media got a hold of what was going on. I think it had to be within the first week or couple weeks that I was thrown in prison, and then obviously from there it skyrocketed. One being obviously I was being charged with murder, so that's a big headline. But then because I was a Navy SEAL, it made for sexier headlines.
Welcome to the latest edition of Erase the Podcast, where our guests come on and share their emotional journeys of cancellation. Today's guest is an extraordinarily war-decorated hero, in our eyes, Eddie Gallagher, Navy SEAL, who served many missions in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's coming on to share how things went terribly wrong in the field, and he was accused of literally murder and got completely distorted in the media. And it does have a happy ending, but we're here to talk about that path, that how it went from craziness to a final resolution, and all the nutty stuff that happened along the way. Eddie Gallagher, welcome to our show.
Welcome to our show.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. A lot of people, you've been very generous with sharing your story on the internet, in long-form podcasts as well. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about who you are and what you did. If you wouldn't mind, in brief, maybe take a few minutes and tell us about your military career and tell us exactly what happened that led to all of the attention that you got.
Sure. I'll try and break it down as briefly as possible because there's a lot of intricacies in the story, and which is why we had to write the book, The Man in the Arena, which describes all of it. That really gets into detail. But I joined the Navy in 1999, pretty much right out of high school. Did my first 5 years with the Marine Corps as a medic, because the Marine Corps does not have their own medics. The Navy provides them. So I was in an infantry unit for those 4 years. Went to Scout Sniper School during that time, and then did the invasion of Iraq with 1-8. After I came back from that, then I went to BUDS, which is the Navy SEAL selection process. Made it through there, and from that point on, it was just I did about 9 combat deployments in total. Going back and forth from Iraq to Afghanistan. And it wasn't until my last deployment, which was in Iraq, Mosul, Iraq, which was actually the first place that I had deployed to in the beginning of the war. So we were back there again, trying to take it back from ISIS. And during that time, I had a couple disgruntled SEALs in my platoon, and they started a rumorville campaign because I was in charge. I was the platoon chief, and our personalities did not jive, and that happens. But yeah, these guys started a pretty much rumorville, which then it started off very small as that they didn't like working for me, that I was too aggressive. I was putting them in danger. Then when nobody was paying attention to that, they escalated it to I was, stealing things from them. All of this was done to try and just ruin my reputation. Everything that they were saying was untrue and was proven untrue at the time. And then they escalated it in 2018 when we came back from deployment. It was about 7 months after the deployment had ended. They escalated it to that I was committing war crimes, that I had stabbed a ISIS prisoner to death.
Here's the question for you. Who's writing your story, you or some random dude on the internet? If you're sick of Google, gossip blogs, or that one angry ex controlling how the world sees you, it's time to do something about it. Erase.com helps you take back your narrative by removing harmful content, outdated info, and straight-up lies from search engines. Your past shouldn't be a permanent headline. Erase.com gives you the reset button that the internet forgot to include. So don't let the web define you. Go to Erase.com, use code ERASED for 10% off, and start owning your story today. Links in the description. Click it. Your future self will thank you.
And once that rumor got out. It sort of got out of their hands. NCIS, which is the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, it's kind of like it's the investigative body for the Navy and Marine Corps. And if there's any crimes or anything like that, once they got involved, it skyrocketed. There was a corrupt NCIS agent named Joel Warpinski who took charge of the case. And he pretty much came up with his own conclusion right off the bat that I was guilty. And the way that he conducted his investigation was that I was guilty the whole time. I ended up being thrown in military prison 9.5 months before my trial because they said that because I was a Navy SEAL, because of all the training that I had done, that I was a danger to the investigation and a danger to the guy and dangerous to the guys that were accusing me of these lies. Once I got thrown in military prison, my wife took the reins. She stood up and started speaking out. She started a organic social media campaign about what was actually going on, the truth about what was going on, because at that time the story had blown up so much that the liberal media and everybody had picked it up and they were demonizing me, and everything was that they were saying was pretty much flat out lies. So my wife was combating that.
So let's back up for a moment. So specifically, as I understand it, there was an event where a lot of ISIS were taken out, except for one teenage kid who was pretty damaged himself. And from your perspective, we've heard that you were really just trying to save the kid's life, but they turned the story into that you actually killed the guy. Is that what happened?
And this is where it gets complicated, because I think people look at combat as black and white, and there's a lot of gray area. Yes, we had bombed a building. We had just gotten a firefight that morning that lasted a couple hours. We had killed probably 30 to 40 ISIS fighters just with our organic weapons. The rest of them hid in a building. We ended up dropping 2 Hellfire missiles on that building, killing the rest of them except for this one individual who was pretty much on his way out. He was wounded bad enough. He wasn't going to survive. The Iraqi partner force that we were working with brought him back to our position. And there was 2 choices to make. Either let them have him and they would have just tortured him to death, which is what they did with all the other prisoners in front of us, or we could just do medical treatments on him until he went out. And that's what we decided to do. We did medical treatments on him, proper medical procedures, not just willy-nilly, but he ended up passing, yes. And they turned that whole incident into that I had stabbed this, prisoner, not even a prisoner, this ISIS fighter to death.
And what was a picture situation? What happened around that? I didn't really understand that.
So afterwards, after the ISIS fighter had passed, we were tasked to stay out there for another couple hours just in case ISIS decided to have a resurgence and push back and start fighting us again, which they didn't. It was it was pretty much 2 hours of standing around. The ISIS body was right there, and if you have a bunch of bored Navy SEALs or that aren't doing anything, we started messing around, taking pictures with the body, just goofing, really, and that is pretty much all that was.
So basically, the media took maybe what situation happened, maybe a picture in poor taste, and just blew it all up and made you.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe
they weaponized that picture as best they could. Yes.
So talk to us about. So basically, your wife. You're in a military prison. Your wife came in. She's, trying to combat, the media on the insanity, which we've been through ourselves, so we know exactly how that feels. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how they can just come at you on all sides like these bombs just going off, and they exaggerate everything. So we've been there. We know how it feels, and that's why we're doing this show, because we want to hear your journey. You're part of that. I mean, how did it feel from what I'm understanding, what I heard about you? I mean, you were this, big time guy. I mean, you were the trainer of the trainers. You were somebody who everyone looked up to and respected. What were you feeling when all of a sudden, you feel like the world is against you? You're being attacked on all angles. How does it feel like?
I think coming from, uh, a community where you give everything to, I completely was a true believer in the SEAL teams and what we were doing. I gave my, heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears to that institution, and to have them completely turn their back on me, try and demonize me, make up lies about my character, and then just play along with the liberal media. I mean, the only way to describe it, it's like one of the ultimate forms of betrayal. And yeah, it was a lot to sift through. I had 9 months in a prison cell to process it. But yeah, it was, there were some dark times while I was locked up in prison, just trying to make sense of what was going on. You got to think, cancel culture, that really wasn't a thing when this was going on, at least that I knew of. We, coming up in the military or, belonging, you really don't pay attention to the news too much. You're so fixated on the job and deploying constantly. So we really had to drink through a fire hose of just how, fake news, how the media um, twists things around to fit their narrative, and how they'll outright lie, which was an eye opener, I think, for me, just because you wouldn't think that people would actually do that. So it was, yeah. Looking back now, it definitely, there's a lot of similarities between, other people getting canceled and what they did to us. They make a narrative, and then they try and feed that narrative constantly through the media, or headlines. A lot of it is, and a lot of the headlines are like clickbait stuff. What we learned is, the first thing people read is what they believe, and then to change their mind thereafter is very hard, because
Absolutely.
they don't want to believe that they were lied to. So
So Navy SEALs are like the toughest people on earth, really. And I have so much
um,
respect and admiration for guys like you. And here you are in a prison. I think the prison's probably different from the normal civilian prisons. Are you alone? Are you do you have cellies? Are you in solitary? You said things got pretty dark. Tell us a little
yeah.
bit more about
So
that.
when they first put me in there, they threw me in solitary confinement for about 4 or 5 days, because I was a SEAL. They treated me like I was the biggest threat in the prison. They didn't know what I was going to do, which, I mean, that, and a lot of that is, I'll blame that on Hollywood or whatever else. It's, SEALs are not anything remarkable. We're just regular dudes that chose to do an extraordinary job. We're not, Jason Bourne or however the movies and TV shows portray us. But because of that, because of the way they portray us, they treated me like I was. So they threw me in solitary confinement, and then eventually they let you out into Gen Pop. And so I was in Gen Pop. I had a prison cell, that was my own, and you just spend pretty much the whole day either in Gen Pop or in your cell, depending on, they have lockdown procedures all through the day. And I mean, it is very, I'd say some of it is very similar to civilian prison. I think the only difference is that it houses, people in the military. So you have uh, the prisoner in there is not, they have at least some smarts to them, and they're just it's a little different breed of character. But other than that, they do treat it like a regular prison.
I would assume there's not a lot of random violence like you might see in a regular
Yeah,
prison.
Or
that's it. That's
gangs.
what I was trying to get
Or
at. There's
gangs,
not,
right? No gangs.
yeah, there's not a lot of gangs. The prison that they put me in was a sexual offender prison. So about 85% of them were sex offenders or pedophiles, and then they had about, the other 15% that were just people that had, violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice in some way. But I mean, it's as ridiculous as, there's kids in there that, failed a drug test. because they made a mistake and they're serving 5 years in military prison,
Wow.
which is not right, because I had no clue, really about military prison or anything like that until I was thrown in there. And, and I was thinking, these kids that made mistakes at 18, 19 that are now serving 5 years, if they had gone to college and not raised their right hand to serve this country, none of this would be an issue.
Wow.
But because of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and how broken that system is, and how corrupt it is, they ruin people's lives on a daily basis. And yeah,
Jeez, I
it
could
was
see,
it was an experience.
I could see that actually being a whole hour show. Maybe I'll have you on the Layla show just to talk about your experience in prison. Maybe it sounds like there's some reform that needs to come out of that.
Well,
You ha-
there's definitely some reform, which is, we can get into. My wife and I started the Pipe Hitter Foundation after all this whole ordeal went down. And what we do is we support active duty military members, law enforcement, and first responders if they're being unjustly accused for doing their job. We step in, provide emergency relief aid to their families. We raise money for the legal defense.
Wow.
Because as we found out, the only rights that you have are the ones that you can afford.
Wow.
And we also advocate for these individuals, and try
So-
to actually put out the correct narrative.
So you know what? If you don't mind, I would love to put you on my show, the Layla show, and I'd like to spend like the whole hour talking about what you saw in there, and you're a nonprofit. You think we can do that? On my other
Yeah,
show?
check my schedule. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
I can have, for now, we'll put your nonprofit in the show notes as well as your book that you wrote. But if you want to spend more time just on that nonprofit, my husband and I have a foundation as well. And we support different nonprofits. And we also,
We give, and we're not
yeah,
receivers.
we donate.
Yeah.
We donate money to different, we have, when we sold our company, we donated some money to a donor advised fund. So we actually donate money to different foundations. But we could talk about that more because I also have a wellness center where we are helping some Navy SEALs that have PTSD after getting out. So
Yeah.
we have more to talk about later. That aside from the Erase show.
Oh,
But-
awesome.
But I love that you're making something out of this.
Yeah, and that's the point I was getting to. Plus, another arm of the nonprofit is we are pushing for reform in the UCMJ and trying to get things changed in that manner.
I love that. How
So-
many people? Just sorry, quick question. How many people were in that prison, approximately?
Off the top of my head, I won't be approximate. I can say there was, I think, 4 or 5 different pods. So the pods, each pod is a general population, and mine I think had about 80,
a few hundred.
80 people in there.
Wow.
So a lot of this started with a bunch of your direct reports who were complaining about like bullshit kind of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
and maybe you were a bit of a ball buster in the field, and I'm really, we comment on this a lot. We feel like the younger generation is like kind of like soft and entitled and all that. Is that kind of like where all this started? And it's surprising, if so, I find it surprising and ironic that these are also Navy SEALs as well. Younger Navy SEALs, I suppose, that are supposed to be tough as nails, and yet they were complaining about like minor little stuff and trying to set you up and take you down. Is that sort of how this whole thing started?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's I get, people are like, well, these are Navy SEALs. How can they, act like this? Unfortunately, there's always going to be your bottom 1-2% that make it through SEAL training and that don't belong. I can tell you that when I was an instructor at Buds for about a year and a half, around 2011, 2012. And that is when Obama he put out an order to grow the SEAL force. He wanted to grow it by 500, which is a huge ask. So the command decided to up the number of people that were attending Buds each time. So you'd have, instead of a class of like 150, you'd have a class of 250, but you still had the same amount of instructors, which then that 1 or 2% that shouldn't make it now turns into, 3 to 4%. The numbers go up.
And just to cut
But
you off, when there's a
yeah.
class of 250, that doesn't mean that all 250 will graduate and become SEALs,
No.
correct?
No.
Right, only a
Yeah,
percentage
we-
thereof.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
about I think it's a 80% dropout rate or quit. People that quit. So,
Right.
but that being said, you always have like one or two guys that shouldn't be there, but they somehow squeak by. But when they up the number of classes, now you have like 4 or 5 guys that probably shouldn't be there. And so if you have 7 classes a year, that's 35 individuals that really don't belong in the teams. And we are not a very huge organization. So just having that massive amount of number of guys who are kind of entitled, that feel like, they are owed something for going to be a SEAL. And a lot of that has to do with the popularity that the SEAL teams got over the past decade, especially with the Osama bin Laden thing. You had a lot of guys wanting to join just to say they were a Navy SEAL, not really to do the job. And that's what I had in my platoon. And it wasn't the whole platoon. It was like 3 or 4 guys that really weren't there for the right reasons. And I think they found that out on deployment once we started getting shot at and, all the other atrocities that we saw that deployment. I think instead of realizing that, hey, maybe I'm not cut out for this job, they decide to point the finger at me and say, hey, you were the reason that this is happening. You're making us go out every day. It's a very childlike behavior. But yeah, I think whatever is going on in society transfers over to the military in some form or fashion.
Is there a gap in the Navy SEAL training that doesn't prepare these young people for like being barked at or the emotional challenges that have in actual combat?
No, there's no gap. Our training we try to make it as realistic as possible. Before we deploy, we train pretty much 80% of the year, very hard, very rigorous. We try to simulate what combat is like on every training block, but at the end of the day, training is training, right? We're not shooting at each other with live rounds. We're shooting each other with like paint rounds or simunition rounds. And so I don't think that you can't simulate it 100%. So you don't know how people are actually going to react when the real rounds start flying. And I've seen it before. There's guys that do deploy, and once we start getting shot at or having to do something high risk or dangerous on deployment where we could possibly die, they realize like maybe I don't want to do this, but they finish out the deployment and then get out, which there's nothing wrong with that. But these guys decided to blame it on me.
So I want to go back to you being in prison, knowing you were falsely accused, and you've got 9 months to sit there and just think and feel what's going through your head. Like what share with us the emotions, from the ups and the downs, and how you got through it. What did you do to keep yourself sane?
Well, like you said, it definitely was a lot of emotions. It was a roller coaster ride the whole time in there. And knowing that my wife was on the outside fighting for me, and my brother as well. My brother and my wife both are the only reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today. I think knowing that she was out there fighting for me, definitely there was comfort in that. And but at the same time, yes, you go through a lot of thoughts that you never thought you would have to think of. I was facing life without parole, so I had to get it through my head that I could possibly be found guilty because of the system that was so corrupt. They were trying to come at us at every angle, and it was like we would make strides 2 steps forward, but then they would do something that would set us like 5 steps back, and then it was a constant fight to try and get the truth out there. But while I was in there, I had to sort of set myself up mentally that I could possibly be in prison for life, and that's a hard pill to swallow. I think I had a breakthrough about 2.5, 3 months in. I had a phone call with my wife, and all the calls are recorded. You only get about 15 minutes a day if you even get to have the phone. But I was still under the belief that the command that I had worked for was going to do right by me. And I would ask her all the time, what were they doing? What were they saying? And she finally had a straight come to Jesus moment. And she was like, nobody is coming to help you. The command is against you. everybody is against you except me and your brother, and the people that are obviously following her. So she's just like, you need to get that through your head. So I went back to my cell. At that point, I was like at a loss because even while I was in there, I was still trying to control what was going on, which I really couldn't. And so I just got on my hands and knees, spoke out loud to God for the first time in my life, and I just gave him complete control. Was like, whatever your will is, I accept it. And I felt a very just this heavy, heavy presence take a weight off my shoulders. And I tell people that story all the time because I mean that is exactly what really got me through the rest of my time in there. Not that it wasn't easy, but I always, since talking out loud to him, and then I would speak to him every night, I had a level of confidence that I was going to be okay.
You said that, and I felt it. My eyes got a little watery.
I got chills on my.
I felt it, especially you say that was the first time you've spoken to God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what
out loud? Yeah.
what called you to just surrender to God?
I think that after having that talk with my wife, and she's my number one fan. She's like my best friend. She's my hero. So I, having her say that to me, I was just like, I had to let that sink in. And then I think it was just too much for me to take, as far as like nobody from my command was going to stick up for me or do anything. In fact, they were against me. It was just a lot to take on. And I think I had nowhere to go at that point. So I just gave it, it was just a natural reaction, I think. I was just like, and I grew up Catholic, and then my wife is Christian. So when we got married, that was a huge thing that she was like, you need to be a believer, and I was, but I don't think I had completely given 100% of myself to him until that moment.
See, he surrendered to God, but even still, it's 2.5 months. Still thinking that this is it. He could be locked away for the rest of his life. It just happened to work out over the next, I guess, 6.5 months that things worked in your favor.
Yeah, not without fighting. There was a lot going on too. I had a set of lawyers. I mean, this is a whole nother element to the story that I don't think people really, pick up on just because of everything else that overshadowed it. But before I was locked up, I had gotten a couple lawyers that worked for a nonprofit called United American Patriots. They were actually that nonprofit was started for the exact reasons that we started our nonprofit, except along the way it got corrupt, which we found out. These lawyers had no intention of really representing me. They were using my face and likeness to raise money, which they were saying was for our legal defense, but we've come to find out that most of it was just going back to them. They actually ended up trying to extort us, saying they were going to leave me in prison for another year if we didn't give them a certain amount of money. So we ended up, firing them probably like a month and a half before my trial, when I got a whole new legal team, which was a whole nother like battle of like, it's scary because you're firing these individuals who've been on your case for now, almost a year, and then you're completely going over to another set of lawyers. But I can tell you this, that was like divine intervention. These new set of lawyers that I had were just remarkable. Tim Parlatore, Mark Mukasey, and then Bernie Carrick, who was a police commissioner.
Bernie Carrick. He's going to come on our show, actually, because he has his own story of cancellation.
Yes, he does. Yeah. So when I say divine intervention, Bernie is really what I'm talking about. He actually had seen some articles written about me.
Former police chief for New York City, under Giuliani. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he had seen some articles that were coming out about me, and because he had already been through something similar, he smelled something fishy going on. He had called around, asked about my reputation to some other SEALs, got nothing but good responses, and so he then reached out to my wife Andrea, and they had talked, and he was sort of asking like, what are your lawyers now doing? he's asking the questions that needed to be asked because this was our first time going through it. So we were, kind of lost in of how things are actually supposed to work. And so he ended up coming on our team as an advisor, and he brought those two new lawyers. And from that point on, it was like we had the A team. They were calling out the prosecutors. So the prosecutors got caught spying on my legal team.
Wow.
They sent a beacon through an email trying to get everything that we had our case, because they knew that they were going to lose. They knew that their whole case was built on a mountain of lies. So they were trying to spy on us to try and counteract the truth. But we caught them. This is how, like, in a civilian court of law, the case would have been thrown out right there. But because it's a military justice system, all they did was relieve that prosecutor and put another one in his place, and just said, keep going.
Wow.
So and there's so much more to it. Like, there's the amount of corruption and deceit that they tried to pull, and that we caught them at every turn was pretty crazy. Which, it's all in the book. But at the end, yes, we ended up going to trial. The trial lasted about 2 weeks. And I was found innocent of everything, all the charges except for taking a picture with a dead terrorist. Which is really, a slap on the wrist, but because I was at a court martial, they threw the book at me.
When you say they threw the book at you, how long did they give you for that?
Well, I already had time served because I was in prison for 9.5 months before. But then they tried to take my retirement. Pretty much like I had never served 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Nope, because President Trump at the time had stepped in. So while I was in, because my wife, like I told you, she started that social media campaign, garnering a lot of attention. And eventually, her and my brother were being invited on Fox News. They went on, I think, Fox and Friends, and I think it got the president's attention at that time. So he took interest in it. He looked into the case, got all of the details, and he ended up tweeting, as he does, to let me out of prison.
Wow.
He was like, he wasn't saying I was guilty or not guilty, but he was like, let him out so he can properly defend himself before trial. Because while I was locked up, I was not allowed to see my lawyers. I was not allowed to, work on my case. I was denied medical visits.
Wow.
They were having the guards. So my command and NCIS were briefing the guards weekly on Mondays to try and make me snap. So they come in and toss my cell all the time, do strip searches all the time, just trying to poke and prod at me. So it was one big game. The only reason I knew that was going on is because a couple of the guards were actually cool, and they came and told me, like, hey, we're being told to, make you snap. The prosecutor was also hiring other prisoners or talking to other prisoners, saying that if they could get me to say something or whatever, that it would help lessen their punishment. But these prisoners would come up and tell me that they were doing all these things. So it was just battling through all that and becoming victorious was really something else.
So did President Trump's tweet get you out of prison, or did he end up pardoning you?
No, I was not pardoned. I went to trial and was found not guilty of everything. What he did, he tweeted to get me out of prison so I could defend myself before trial. And then after the trial, when they threw the book at me for taking a picture with a dead terrorist, has been done throughout all wars. He saw what the punishment they were giving me was definitely unjust and unfair, so he stepped in again and said, no, he's going to retire with everything he's earned over the past 20 years.
Wow.
And so that was the second time he stepped in, and then he stepped in one more time when the Navy decided to award the prosecutors medals for their case against me.
Wow.
And so then he stepped in again and was like, nope, you're not getting any medals. You guys cheated. You guys lied.
Wow, that's awesome.
You guys did not act, in an according manner. So he took that from them as well.
Wow. When was that?
This was in 2019.
Oh, so you're lucky too. Had this been a year later, whew.
Oh,
Right.
I'd still be in prison.
Oh, whew, you, the time was on your side.
Tell us about your family. So, Andrea is your wife. How long you been married, and I believe you have some kids as well. And
Yep. So we're going on 18 years marriage. We have 3 children. So we have my oldest, Trevin, is in the Marine Corps right now. He's 25. We have a daughter that's 21, and she's about to graduate from Jacksonville University this year. And then we have a son, Ryan. He's 15, so he's sophomore year at high school. My wife and I have known each other since high school. We were best friends in high school. Sort of got separated. I joined the Navy, and then she moved down to Florida, but we reconnected 5 years later, and ended up getting married, and she was pretty much with me through my whole SEAL career.
she was your rock, it sounds like, unwavering through this entire process, and
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
clever and resourceful to start the social media campaign that got a lot of attention.
I'd have done that for you too, honey.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
we've been
she's-
through our own stuff. She's had 2 rounds of cancellation. I've had 1, and we've been there for each other the whole way.
That's everything.
And it did strain
Yeah.
us at one point. Strain us a little bit.
Strain you, not me. I didn't strain.
Strained me a little bit, but then I got my head on straight, and I realized
Yeah.
it wasn't her really.
Got his head on straight fast, fortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's when you're going, as you guys know, when you're going through something like that, you need to be supporting each other at every angle, even because as you know too, like when they're trying to cancel you or come after you, one of the ways they do it is by trying to cause undue stress onto your marriage, try to
Yeah.
break you guys up so you guys start fighting each other. And we've always had a rock solid relationship. Having her with me through my SEAL career and my children, they had already been through enough trauma, just from losing teammates, just a rigorous schedule that you have during that time. So my wife is already, I mean, she was a rock before then. She was definitely one of the most resilient, strong people that I know. And I think that this, if you want to look at it as an opportunity, it was an opportunity for her to shine and for people to see like just how remarkable she is and just how strong she is. And it showed. No one messes with Mama Bear.
I love it. I love it. And how did your kids handle it? Did they get teased or bullied at school and college, or did they have to, what were they dealing with? Because it impacts everybody.
Oh yeah, I think that they definitely, it impacted them in some ways. As far as like bringing it up at school, luckily I had moved my family from California out to Florida right before I was locked up. So everybody here where we moved in Florida was very supportive about what was going on. So they weren't, really messed with too much. Obviously, just dealing with the fact that their father was in prison is, hard enough. But I would say again, the reason they did so well during this was because they could look to my wife and see, exactly the strength that she had. She refused to play the victim card. She wasn't out there crying about what was going on. She was fighting back, and I think my kids definitely, looked at both of us, and when they saw her standing up tall and strong and fighting back, I think they took on those same attributes as well. My oldest son was in college at the time, up at Santa Cruz, so he was definitely dealing with some blowback, but luckily, my Ava and Trevin, they're my stepkids. I've had them since they were tiny, so I don't even like saying that they're mine, but they have a different last name. So it was a good thing that he had his different last name in that college, because he was telling me there was a lot of stuff being said about me. But when I talked to him on the phone, I was like, just ignore it, and just focus on doing your best at school, and just don't tell. I was like, don't tell anybody that you're my son.
When these things happen, the family is thrust into crisis mode. Like,
Yeah.
with us, it was like that, and like within a matter of days, the media's camped outside our school every day. For you, did you see it coming? Was it a slow-moving train, or did it all happen very quickly? And next, and they're taking you away like that, or did you have any advance warning?
No. So I was put under investigation. I'm trying to get the years right here. 2018. I think around January, February timeframe. I was told I was being investigated, but there was no details. I wasn't even told what I was being really investigated for. They were just like, there's some accusations of laws of armed conflict that you're under investigation. They pulled me from my job, sort of shunned me, put me in an office, and they were like, hey, you're just going to sit here until this investigation's over. And there really wasn't much being said. And at the time, we were like, this is ridiculous. And we just really didn't pay it as much attention as, I guess. I mean, at that time, we were just like, this is, these allegations are, ridiculous. We don't think this is going to go anywhere because they were so ridiculous. And then I think around June timeframe is when this is where it really escalated. I got told to come in to check in at work at 7 a.m. to go meet with the executive officer, just to have a one-on-one talk with him. I showed up there and he opened the door, and there was about 6 NCIS agents there. They handcuffed me, told me they were going to take me down for interrogation. They paraded me in front of the whole command, handcuffed. Once I got to the interrogation room, I told them that, I was like, I'm not going to talk to you without a lawyer. And so then they locked me in there for 7 hours, while simultaneously conducting a raid on my home. My wife was not home at the time. She was at a brunch down the street with a friend, and my youngest son, Ryan, who was 8 at the time, and then my oldest, Trevin, who was 18, were the only ones home. So they raided our house. About 25 to 30 NCIS agents, kitted up with guns. They pointed guns at my kids in their face. They dragged them out to the street in their underwear.
Wow.
Made a whole spectacle of it. And my wife found out from a neighbor that had called, like, hey, your kids are in the street in their underwear. Or actually, they called my daughter, who then called my wife.
Oh my God.
So then my wife rushed home, and then they tried to interrogate her. And that is really where we were like, okay, this has gotten out of hand. But unfortunately, when you fall under the UCMJ or when you're in the military, you don't have any rights. You don't, not the rights that you think you have, especially if you were a civilian.
There's no
You just sort of have to sit there and take it.
Wow.
So we, from that point, when they raided the house, I moved my family to Florida not too long after. That was like the final decision. Like, yes, I'm retiring. I'm getting out. This is ridiculous.
Wow.
And they waited until I came back home. I came back to San Diego after moving my family to Florida because I was just going to finish out the rest of my time in GeoBatch, and that's when I went to a TBI, a traumatic brain injury clinic, to get checked up, which is what most operators do before they get out, just to like, hey, what all the injuries that you sustain, is to try to sort of prep yourself and for the best outcome possible before you get out into the civilian world. While I was there is when they came and arrested me on September 11th and handcuffed me again and that's when they threw me in military prison. And that's
Wow.
really where it skyrocketed.
What's the process where it became the news became exposed to the mainstream public? How did that happen?
I can't pinpoint exactly when the news started covering it. I mean, it couldn't have been too long after I was locked up. Once the media got a hold of what was going on, I think it had to be within the first week or couple weeks that I was thrown in prison, and then obviously from there it skyrocketed. One being obviously I was being charged with murder, So that's a big headline. But then because I was a Navy SEAL, it made for sexier headlines. So you had every, you know, media outlet wanting to cover this story. And unfortunately, at the time, the prosecutors were giving the media all the lies that, they were trying to throw at me or accuse me of. And the media was printing them as fact. Like, this is what's going on. And, we hadn't even had, close to our day in court yet. But it's like jury by media.
That's our experience. We had no voice, so that's sort of why we created this podcast.
Are you allowed, are you allowed to sue the media for defamation? Because they're really, because a normal civilian can. Is it because you're in the military?
So,
because President Trump sued and he won, and there've been recently a few lawsuits because the media is just really, I really think that they need to get slapped around a lot more to learn their lesson, because what they're doing to people's lives, it's wrong. Yes. It's wrong on every level. It's wrong.
It's evil what they do, and while you're in, you can't sue the military. While you're in, because they have this thing called the Ferris Act. And then once I got out, I was told I was a public figure, whether I wanted it to be or not, and that when you're a public figure, the media can pretty much have their way of how they want to write stories about you. And we had, I think we had considered a couple times, especially, there was one journalist, David Phillips, who had worked for the New York Times. He had just... I don't know, this hard on for this case and for me, and really demonizing me. And we had considered suing, him in the New York Times, but at the end of the day, they have a lot more money than us and a lot more time. And it's like, you could either sit there and combat that and get back into it, the whole legal system.
Yeah.
And build.
But that's bullshit. You're a public figure because of this controversy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
exactly.
It's not, I guess, it's not fair, but it happened,
What were the biggest lies that the media told about you that you want to just take this opportunity to just completely debunk?
Well, I mean, obviously,
besides the fact that you didn't commit murder.
Yeah, there's that.
But they go deeper, so what else were they spewing?
They were portraying me as some kind of a warmonger, like. It was really crazy, because it's, you give, everything that you have to go overseas and to, fight our nation's enemies and try and get rid of evil over there. And while you're doing it, you're portrayed as like, yes, you're a patriot. This is what you should be doing. But then once they want to turn on you, they kind of use that against me, and they're like, oh, look how many times he wanted to go to war. He just was addicted to war. He just wanted to kill people. They were like, he was they call me a psychopath or a sociopath. They said I was going out on my own, and just like, while we were in Iraq, I was doing stuff by myself, which is all ridiculous. Like, it was just completely made up stuff. But, there's no, while that's going on, there's, I don't have a voice to be like, that's not true. So you just sort of have to take it on the chin, and that's why, it's like, you're going to have your day in court. But unfortunately for some people, you get your day in court and the jury has already made up their mind because you've been all over the media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been people, we've read some comments about us, and I read these comments, like, these people have no clue who we are. No. They have completely formed this biased opinion because of the left-wing media that has a hard-on for conservatives and for whoever they have their eye on. And if it's just like a bunch of bullies in the playground, and they don't stop until they've got blood. And that's why I'm glad all these lawsuits are coming out. My husband and I are truly contemplating suing the Miami Herald, because what they did to us and what they're doing to others, we feel like we need to take a stand for humanity. We need to take a stand for others who can't fight, because it's wrong. If the news is supposed to be A, unbiased, and B, they really need to present both sides, but the way they skew the words, the way they say things are blatant lies. Like with us, we were making a huge charitable donation to the city, and they kept calling it an investment. They kept saying we were investing in public land that we were getting for free. I mean, it was just the lies and the lies and the lies that create this public opinion. And then you're right, the jury has been listening to this stuff, being bombarded with it. Who are they going to believe?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
they made their mind.
I mean, that's, unfortunately, like you said, they're in a perfect world. Yes, they would report both sides of the story, but I would say about 90% of the media is on one side, and that's it. And they're against the other side, so they're going to report whatever they can to make the other side look bad, even if it's lies. And I think, like you said, it's crazy to watch these journalists just outright fabricate and lie in their articles, and there's no accountability for it. And we catch them, and my lawyer would call them and be like, hey, what you wrote in your article was completely untrue, and they'd be like, oh, okay, we'll fix it. And the next day it's just like they one line something out of it, but it's like it's already too late. You already put it out there. People have already read it.
Sorry, honey. Quick. Was it Miami Herald involved in Florida as well for you?
I'm sure. This is national news.
You're right.
Yeah, it was national. So like, I don't even think we were paying attention to like the Miami Herald or anything like that. I'm sure they were. It
was that David Phillips guy who. Was that his name?
David Phillips, working for the New York Times. We still dealt with, after I got out, obviously, it doesn't end. And I think that's the one thing, when you go through something like this, and I'm sure you guys can attest to it, you might come out, victorious, like, hey, we proved in court, this was all lies, see, but it doesn't matter at that point. You are still like looked at in a bad light by a certain part of the country. So like when I got out and I was trying to get jobs or do certain things, the small media outlets would then report like, oh, this war criminal, they were calling me a war criminal. They also, the big rumor that they still spread is that I was pardoned. I was not pardoned whatsoever. I actually went and faced my accusers and was found not guilty. But that is like, what I became is what I call like a political football. When they need to like bash Trump or anybody in that administration, they'll pull me off the shelf and just be like, oh, look, remember this war criminal, and then create the lies all over again.
Yeah, so here you are, proven innocent. You went through the entire process. You were proven innocent. I bet to this day there's still some percentage of the population that hears your name and just thinks all these horrible thoughts about you. And there's nothing you could do to change that. And before that, you were a pillar of humanity in a way, a real hero to all of us. And how does that feel? I know how that feels. Maybe you could share with us what that.
We were at one point Miami's most philanthropic couple. And then it's just boom, overnight.
Yeah. So how does it feel knowing, walking around, there's some people that still are latching on to some of these mistruths and mischaracterizations?
I mean, well, I'll answer that in two parts. One, I've never considered myself or a hero or anything like that. It's not how we look at ourselves. And so, it's kind of awkward to, for people to say that. It's like, oh, you're like a hero, you're this or that. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I was a Navy SEAL, and I did my job to my utmost ability. But once you get out, that was definitely something I had to get over. The negative comments, still the articles of lies that were still being put out even after I had retired from the military. And at first it's frustrating because you're like you said, you don't even know who I am, but yet you're sitting here. We were getting death threats on, my kids were getting death threats on their social media. It just, it was rampant. But what I came to find out is, it's like that certain part of the population, I don't care. It's
Yeah.
like if that's what you want to believe, then believe it. I'm not trying to win you over. I
Yeah.
really don't care what you think. And honestly, it's kind of it's like cutting the fat out of your life. It's like, okay, now I know.
Yeah.
Like
You can relate to
I,
that.
I,
She's wired. She's built like that. Me, I had to. It was a journey to get to
I was
that
like, you
process,
know
to
what?
get to that point.
I said, I said, you know what? Great. We just got the debris out of our lives. You know, we just got
Oh.
the. You know, the
Eddie and I are a little
residue out of
more
our
sensitive
lives. And
than-
like,
than you,
no,
yeah.
I'm over it. They did us a favor, you know, if that's how you feel about me, because I'm trying to take a stance on a, experimental vaccine, then I don't want injected in my body, or I'm not going to mandate at my school. I just like, don't be my friend. Hate me. I don't care. Hate me all you want.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from the piece that I truly feel more people need to stand up against is the media. And I really, really feel more people need to sue them, to teach
They're out of
them
control.
that they cannot destroy lives like this.
And you can't fix it with a little tiny retraction.
No, they need to
and
do
a
the
one-liner
right
at the
thing.
bottom of an article.
Otherwise,
the headline is still scathing, and it's just not.
Yeah,
they're out of control.
Otherwise, I hope they keep getting hit with these $50 million lawsuits, $100 million lawsuits until they stop, until they realize that them being fake news, them distorting and spewing these lies is going to cost them more money than the clickbait that they think that they're generating.
That's why
The little bit of revenue is gonna be nothing compared to the amount of lawsuits that they're gonna get for their lies. And that's one of the things I'm hopeful with President Trump. I mean, like, there isn't anybody better than him to sign an executive order that says, you know what, you've abused all the laws that we put in place to protect you, and we're going to put some transformation in place to make sure that you can no longer destroy innocent people's lives. You were here to tell a story, and that's it.
The media has too many protections, so they
Too
can.
many.
Yeah, so like military, or this SLAPP thing. I don't remember some sort of legislation where you have to pay for their legal fees if you lose. There's there's way too much too many protections that they have. If you're a notable figure, then you're out of luck.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So my question for you, what has it been like since with the couple of guys that really tried to do you harm? Have you made amends with them? Do they, where are they at? Are they still in the military? And another question attached to that: why do you think your superiors, your bosses, didn't stand up for you? Were they just protecting their career? Like, what do you think happened that, one, you didn't get the protection that you should have? Because you guys are, the Navy SEALs are all about loyalty and brotherhood. Like, what happened that that went away?
That's a misconception.
Okay. Tell me, what happened?
Well,
Were they saving their careers? Like, what went down? Why did they just abandon you?
Yeah, as far as the guys who accuse me, what they're doing now, I really don't. I don't know. I've completely detached from, what I think. There's one of them might still be in, and I know that his reputation he is not liked at all. But as far as and I get what we were saying, and that was really what made a lot of headlines and articles, and had people asking well, how could this happen in the SEALs? They're all such a tight-knit brotherhood. That's a huge misconception as well. There is a tight-knit brotherhood in the teams, but there's pockets of them. Right? It's not just because you're in the SEAL teams does not mean you're we're all in this together. Everyone has their different reasons for joining. There are some guys that join to make a career out of it, that want to be a master chief at some point. There's other guys that join just to say they were SEALs, so they could do maybe their 5 years, get out, and then go start a name brand or something. And then there's the rest of us who join to actually do the job and go to war and actually be with each other in war over and over and over. That's where the real brotherhood is, and that's a tight-knit unit. But that does not encompass the whole community, believe me. And as far as the leaders that did not have my back, yes, you hit the nail on the head. It's careerism, right? So what happened with me is my allegations were brought to the admiral, which was Admiral Colin Green. He was in charge at the time. Because the SEAL community had been under such scrutiny um, over the past like couple years, as far as drug use, all these articles were coming out about us, and not in a good light, which is what happens when you publicize us in the first place, and hail us as America's heroes. There's only one place you can go, and that's down. And so a lot of the liberal media was putting out all these articles about the rampant drug use, the fights, this and whatever thing was going on in the community, which has been happening in the SEAL community and every special operations branch since the beginning of special operations. You're not hiring Boy Scouts to go do this job. These aren't angels. These are guys that are willing to go do a dirty job. So because of all these allegations that were coming out and all these articles, when my allegation was put in front of the admiral's desk, and I got this firsthand from a guy who was in the room, he had opened my record and looked at it and saw that I was highly respected, that I was actually a good SEAL, and he said make an example out of him, and slid it across, and that was it. That was the order that was given, was bury him, to make an example that we are not going to put up with this mess anymore. I was supposed to be this message that was sent across the SEAL community that, if you, do anything that embarrasses the institution, we will destroy you.
Wow.
And so from that point on, anybody that stood up for me, and there was multiple instances where people stood up and said, what you guys are doing to him is wrong, they were punished.
Wow.
Guys that wanted to come in and testify for me about my character, or just come and help in any way, were threatened. Like, if you go do this, then you are putting your career in jeopardy. So there's that whole aspect to it as well. Careerism plays a huge part in what happened, in the way that my case was handled, for sure.
You could say the same thing happened around the COVID vaccine, because the COVID vaccine was really, there were so many young people, or there's so many people that didn't want to take it. But
Yeah.
because there was this, this aggressive push, instead of doing the right thing and knowing that you shouldn't inject an experimental shot into your people who are going to go out and fight for us, because of the bureaucracy and because of people being afraid to lose their jobs, all these crazy, insane decisions were being made. So, it's kind of sad that you're going to, I guess I can see why they did it, because maybe some of these people had been there for 15, 20 years and they didn't want to lose their retirement, but it's just,
Exactly.
it's kind of a tragedy.
Well,
It's
and that's what happened. So our foundation was actually where we were actually helping guys in the military during the whole pandemic. We, guys that were like refusing the vaccine were reaching out like, hey, they're about to screw me over because I won't take this vaccine. And who they were really going after, and this is pretty much the sick part, is the guys that were in 18, 19 years that were like, hey, I don't want to take this. And they're like, well, and this is verbatim from officers telling these individuals, if you don't take this, you're going to destroy your whole family. You're going to destroy everything that you've worked for, and I will be there to help destroy you. Like, you are setting an example for everybody else. You should just take it. And yeah, they threaten you, to a point where you have no choice. It's like, okay, I can refuse this vaccine and then have everything taken from me, or just take it, and I don't blame some of the guys for taking it, because it's like, their whole career is being put in jeopardy. It doesn't make it, and it doesn't make it right. But it was a sad state of affairs over those couple of years, for sure.
And where are you at now with your healing journey? Where are you at, and do you have more healing to do? And then what advice would you have for anybody else going through this cancellation? So I guess it's 3 questions in one.
Yeah.
Where are you at now with your healing journey? Do you have more healing to do? And what advice would you give to anybody else that's going through this cancellation journey?
Sure. Where I'm at in my healing journey right now is, we're in a very good spot. I would think, from what we went through, we're crushing it. we're happy. We live in Florida on the Panhandle. My kids are all doing well. My wife is doing awesome. She's in the real estate business down here. I run my own business. I do training. I teach law enforcement or civilians, shooting and tactics and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's always room to heal. I think you're never completely 100% there, especially if you've been through certain traumatic events. I think that's a work in progress. I spent my whole first year, I would say a year and a half after I got out, of doing nothing but getting treatments, just trying to get my head back on straight, because it was just a lot to deal with, not only from dealing with that whole ordeal, but just from 20 years of combat. There's other injuries that come along with that, that I had to try and recover from. So, my wife, again, thank God, she told me, she's like, hey, when I got out, I was chewing the carpet, wanting to go work, and she's like, no, you're doing nothing but treating yourself until you get to some semblance of like normalcy. So yeah, I did everything from hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. I had I did talk therapy. I went and got all my blood panels done to make sure what I was deficient in. I even did a psychedelic journey down in Mexico, which was a huge game changer, or helped out and pushed me in the right
Ayahuasca?
direction. Ibogaine.
Ibogaine,
Oh,
sure.
nice. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT.
Sure.
So yeah, and
Totally.
that is all like steps that I took to sort of get back on the right path. But again, I'll say that there is no end all be all treatment that's going to just completely fix everything. I think those treatments can put you or push you towards the right path. Um, but I think it's an ongoing process. And I'll say this, the one and only game changing treatment that I've done is my faith in Jesus Christ. So, I talk to him every morning. I read my Bible every morning, and there's nothing stronger than that. And it's where we're at right now. I think that is the reason why we're doing so well right now, is because of our faith. And we just try and do the right thing every day, put him first in everything that we do. We still try and serve others. It's why we started the foundation. We After living a life of service, you can't just you don't want to just turn that off. You want to continue to help others, and especially if you go through something like this, and you are able to come out on top and be victorious, then it is your duty to help others that are in the same situation. You can't, and I think what the military wanted us to do and the media was sort of just go away and be like, okay, yeah, you guys got one over on us. It's like, no, we are going to be a pain in your ass the rest of our lives, and we are going to help others that you were trying to do the same thing to.
Do you think
So,
everything happened for a reason? Do you think God had a special
Yes.
purpose, special journey for you?
Oh yeah, by far. My wife, while I was in the teams, like I had said before, I was completely bought in. I put the SEAL teams above everything else, and my wife always warned me. She's like, you're putting this institution, this job on a pedestal, and it's not going to end well. And so she actually jokes. She's like, you literally had to be thrown in prison to wake up and see like what you were worshiping or what you were, doing all these years for the teams wasn't right. Not that it was wrong. She was proud of my service, and she was like supported it the whole time. But I think God was like, you know what, I'm going to put this stubborn SOB in prison for a bit, actually have him wake up, and now being through it all, yes, it all happened for a reason. God has plans or he doesn't put anything on your plate that you can't handle.
It's true.
I think if this hadn't happened, I'd still be in the teams, but it would not be good. I think that job has a shelf life. You can stay in for 30 years, but I guarantee you the rest of your life is going to be in shambles. I could have been divorced. I could have been, my kids, they never saw me as much as they should while I was in. So now that I'm out, I can see the light now and be like, I'm glad all of that happened, for sure. And there's a saying that I tell people when they're going through this. It's my favorite saying. It's like, this pain will serve you well someday. You just have to get through it.
Is that the advice that you give anybody
Yes.
going through? I like that. This pain
Yeah.
will serve you. And we felt that. We felt that in our souls. We felt that in our core. And we have a wellness center, and the wellness center came from pain. It came from me being diagnosed with Lyme disease and having all sorts of health issues. So you can turn pain into something good. And I'd actually love to invite you and your wife for a complimentary day at our Centner Wellness to
In Miami.
We have everything. It's 15,000 square feet of just everything you can think of: hyperbaric, red light, cold plunges,
awesome.
hydrogen shower, credible workout area. So, I'd love to give you guys a free day for thanking you both, really. Thanking you for all your years of service, and thanking your wife for doing such an incredible job of fighting that good fight while you were in there. I mean, really, what an amazing woman. This is the true definition of a woman who stands by her husband.
Yes.
I'm regurgitating and my eyes are getting watery. I mean, it's a story of strength, resilience, and love. This is what a relationship is. Not the transgender HHS he she that was trying to tell us what health was, right?
Oh gosh. We were living in upside down world for like 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like,
Really
what
bizarro
is
world,
going on?
right?
Who do you want to
Yeah.
play you in the movie of your life?
Oh man, I
That's a good
think
question.
Ben Affleck maybe might do a good
Nah,
job.
not
No?
Ben Affleck.
Matt Damon.
Oh, I like
That's-
Matt David.
That's who I get told. That or Chuck Norris.
Oh, Chuck Norris. I like that. His
Yeah.
younger version. The younger version.
Yeah.
How about the younger version of Chuck Norris?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. What a journey you've been through, from combat warrior to spiritual warrior, and warrior on behalf of others whose lives have been treated unfairly. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story, and come on down to Miami. We'll spend some time together.
For sure. And hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. Having people tell their stories about, being canceled or having their lives go into, ruin for a little bit. It's hard to explain to people just how that feels, and just the stress that comes with it. So I think it's really cool that you guys are giving those people a platform to tell their stories.
Thank you, brother.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you too.
And thank you for joining us today.